Welcome to Big Brave Business. This is the podcast where we answer big questions reshaping entrepreneurship. I'm Sarah K. Heeter, and this is Season 3. Each week, I'm bringing on my friends, mentors, and some of the best thought leaders I know. We dive into bold, values-driven conversations about leadership, equity, ethics, and building businesses that actually make a difference. Ready to do business better? Let's dive in. Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I'm joined by another repeat guest and friend that this podcast has brought into my life that I'm so grateful for. So we'll just get right into it. Welcome back to the podcast, Chereen from Sweeney Made Wild.
Hey, Sarah, I'm so excited to be here again.
Yay, thanks. So in particular, what sparked us scheduling an actual recording instead of just being friends is that you recently have migrated your business marketing strategy off of social media entirely at this point, right?
Yeah, completely off of social media to the point where, I still have my Instagram account. I kind of set up some pinned posts, like this is where you can find me. I was on Threads for a little bit after leaving Instagram, but I recently also deleted Threads. So I have none of those apps on my phone. I never even got on TikTok. I think I claimed my account name, I don't know, a few years ago, but never even went on it. So, yeah, I would say I am off of social media, which does not also mean I'm off the internet, though, because I think that gets confused a lot.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, being on the internet, being synonymous with social media, I do think there's some truth to that. And we'll get to that in a second. But I want to first say, when you first started kind of exploring this idea and you were telling me about it and you said, "This is what I'm kind of thinking. Can I spitball this strategy with you? Like, what would it even look like in 2026 to run a business online without social media?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, let's talk about this," because at the time I was feeling so berated by the relentless news cycle on social media that I had temporarily deleted all the social media apps from my phone. I did not delete my accounts. I just took a break. I had been making an effort to post every day, which now I have had trouble getting back to, but I was like, I just need a detox of every time I reach for my phone, I open a social media account. Every time I have any dead air at all in my life, I'm reaching for social media and I'm just mindlessly scrolling. And just removing the apps from my phone broke that habit for a while. It's back, but it had broken that habit for a while where I would notice because the app wasn't there that I would pick up my phone and just hit without even thinking, hit where that app used to be. But because that app was deleted, it would open my bank app or some other random, my email or something. And it was like, oh, that is not what I meant to do. But also I wasn't even being intentional about doing it like that. So when you floated this by me, I was like, okay, wait, please, can we talk about this? Because I'm feeling really drained by social media as well. And yeah, what would it look like? So what went into your decision to want to get off of social media? And how did you form a strategy that didn't include it?
So many things that you just said there, it is so wild, that phenomenon of you delete the apps and you just automatically click it, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, even though it's not there now, you're trying to scroll other things. What is that? But my decision really came around. I've been thinking about it for years, honestly, like a couple of years probably. And how could I possibly do this? When so much of my community has been on Instagram. And and there are parts of it that I enjoyed and that are fun. I've met a lot of people through social media. We met on social
Yeah.
media. I've met a lot of people who are now my real life friends from social, especially in the online business world, because it's most of us or a lot of us are solopreneurs. That's your coworkers in a lot of ways. And so I was worried about losing that. But a very bigger part of me was like, but that's not even what social media is like anymore. Like, it isn't that way anymore. Or it's just you have to be engaged and engage to be engaged with. And I think I was getting to this point. I was in a little bit of a business transition where I'm building a new branch of my business. And so there was so much noise coming at me, so many opinions. And by coming at me, it's like you're just affronted by it. And I was like, I'm not even thinking my own thoughts right now. Like, where what is going on here? And I noticed it was because you look and you start reading people's comments, you start looking at what other people are saying, and you're like, "Oh my god, they're saying it so much better than me," or "That is exactly what I'm thinking," or "Wait a minute, should I be thinking like that, like, doing like that?" And it's just like, there's so many it's so constant, it's like a barrage, right? And that's just opinions, like, that's not the news cycle where we've been through this together for a long time, but, like, my business is a very vocal one about my values, about my ethics, and I don't speak on every single topic that comes across the news cycle. It's impossible to do that. But there are certain things, like especially around social justice, environmental justice, that kind of thing that I would talk about and was very much part of my brand. And my brand is a 1% for the Planet partner, and I actively donate to organizations that are aligned with my values, like including stuff like women's rights, reproductive rights, like LGBTQ, all that stuff. And so I would talk about that stuff, but it became so like it was so constant that there was something that I felt like I needed to address, that it also felt like, okay, if I'm going to have a social media presence and build this community here and talk about these issues, I should address them. And then it became this like, I am so drained by constantly figuring out how to talk about this, from needing to pay so close attention all the time to everything going on, that I didn't even have the capacity to like do the things that are actually driving impact in those spaces. You know what I mean? Where it became, I don't want to say, I mean, everything's a performance to an extent, right? But it felt like I guess I was just tired of that part of it, and I was like, "If I had the energy back from this, what actual difference could I be making in better spaces with more depth?" Like, in the newsletter, I also have a YouTube channel, like, those kinds of places where the impact and I could just speak more, like, there's just so much nuance to all of this stuff. And there can only be so much you can share in a reel or a caption. Not that everything needs to be either. I don't know. There's so many aspects of this. There's actually a great book called On Digital Advocacy by Katie Boulay that's pretty good and talks about all of this stuff. And yeah, as a business owner too, it's just like the balance of addressing these things that are happening, these horrible things that are happening, and also running your business and being resourced so that you can continue running the business, helping people, doing the work, whatever.
Yeah. So I think there's so much that you said that I definitely relate to. I'm sure the person listening is also like, yeah, I mean, I feel that. There are some people I know, and it might be you listening, who love running a business off of social media, who love the fact that from the sideline of their kid's soccer game or on vacation with their family or whatever, they can still be making money just by posting consistently on social media. There's a lot of things about it that have really globalized us and made it really easy to share ideas in a global marketplace immediately, which for better or for worse, we also I've learned a lot by connecting with people in certain places. But I think at the same time, all of the exhaustion that you just said resonates. And I'm sure the person listening also can relate to that. So what does an alternative, I mean, you mentioned like just offhand your newsletter and YouTube, and obviously you also have a podcast. I don't know if that's obvious. You also have a podcast. But like when you go to create a strategy to still be able to run a business online, what do you need to consider? And like, how's that working for you? What's it look like? What are you even doing?
Totally.
How do you still
There
do
was
that all?
definitely a strategy behind it, and it definitely took that couple years of stewing and thinking about it that built the way for me to be able to come off in a way that didn't impact my business, or at least I don't think it's impacted my business as of yet. So yeah, there was definitely strategy behind it. I mean, so I stumbled upon this other podcast called Off the Grid by Amelia Ruby. And her whole business and podcast is about building a business without social media. And that's kind of what got the juices flowing for me about maybe this is a possibility. And I listened to her pod for a while, as we do, and really started thinking about it. And so I then was like, I think I'm at this point of my business that I can do that. And part of it, I think it's multifaceted, but a big part of it is I did grow a community on there. And that community, a lot of them are also on my newsletter that I am really consistent on. I've been, I think, sending a weekly newsletter for over 2 years now, which I'm really happy about. I was also, for these last couple of years, in the process of growing a YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel is still really small, and most of the videos that I do on there are vlogs. So I was going through this business pivot and transition where I'm just documenting my journey. I've also started doing the podcast, and they're partly video podcasts as well. But it was kind of like I noticed that a lot of the conversations I was having were through YouTube, where people were reaching out to connect, or people were becoming clients, or I was getting people to come on my retreats, like, from YouTube, not Instagram. And I think a big piece of that is because there's so much more depth there, and I was craving that depth, like, more of that connection that we used to have on social, but kind of went away. Like, a lot of people talk about, "Oh, why can't it be like 2019 Instagram or whatever?" But it's not like that anymore, you know what I mean? And even when I say, like, the things that I miss, I'm like, "I miss seeing what's so and so or my friend is up to," but the way the algorithm was, I wasn't really even seeing that, and then you get so sucked in that you're not even in that headspace anyway. But anyway, back to the strategy part. It was so really building my newsletter and building the YouTube channel allowed me to come off of social media with having my core audience, or like the really engaged community there, another place for people to go. And I went about it in kind of I think I made myself like an 8-week plan or whatever, where over the course of 8 weeks, and I wasn't posting that often. I was posting maybe 2 times a week this whole time. And over the course of 8 weeks, I was like, okay, every post that I do make, I want it to first tell people I'm leaving social media so that they have a chance to come to the newsletter or the YouTube. Obviously, not everyone sees every post anyway. So, I mean, even after the last post in that 8 weeks, there was people that still didn't realize that I was off Instagram. But that helped me hopefully capture some of my really engaged community into these new places. And then I basically made a couple of posts that were like, if you're seeing this, I'm not here anymore. I'm not gonna answer DMs. I'm not gonna see your stuff. So find me over here. And it's been, as of right now, 3 months, so not that long, but also I feel so much better. And it has given me so much more space. And I think before I would argue with myself, like, it's really not that much time. You only post a couple times a week. Like, how long does that actually take? And you come to realize that amount of time allotted elsewhere is so freeing.
Think so much of the time I spend on social media is mindless scrolling. It's not even, and maybe some engagement, like maybe I hit reply and I'll post a comment or something. And I have set screen time limits. I've done that before where I can only spend like an hour on social media a day. That's still an hour a day though. And I think it's so easy to override those that you can just be like, nope, today I'm going to stay on it. Right. And at some point you override that enough that you're like, "I'm just gonna get rid of this screen time limit because I'm overriding it every day anyway. Obviously, I don't want it to be this short." I felt like it was good at first, like, it would prompt me to consider, like when I deleted the apps from my phone, it was, like, maybe a 2-week time span, and so really short compared to, like, "Oh, 3 months isn't that long." Like, that's a long time to be off social. But in 2 weeks, I did feel a lot better. I did feel like I broke the habit because over the course of that 2 weeks, I did stop reaching for it and realizing I was staring at the login screen to my bank, right? Like, okay, like, nope. And in fact, when I put this is kind of funny because what happened when I put them back on, that at first the habit was still broken because I didn't add the shortcuts to those apps back on my home screen. So I have to actively like search for the app in order to open it. But now I'm used to that. So it isn't a big deal at all. Anyway, It's funny how our brains just like quickly adapt to things. But what I did notice is there was stuff I missed. There was like a big life event that happened in an extended family member's life that I wanted to see photos. There were like pictures and videos of friends' kids who I haven't seen in years, who in person, who live across the country, who like mutual friends or my family would be like, "Oh, did you see that video of this so and so's son like spelling his name, blah, blah," and it's like, "No,"
I mean,
and that
I
FOMO, like, really brought me back.
I think the interesting part when hearing you say that, though, is it's like when you're just taking a break, like I've taken breaks, like 6 weeks off
Mhm.
of social without announcing an actual
Yeah,
exit
yeah,
and would get back on. But now that I've made like a official, I am not going to be on here anymore. What I've noticed that's interesting is that people, because they know I'm not on there seeing that stuff, they're not assuming that I've seen it. You know what I mean? Or that I'm not going to come back. And they know that because they know for sure that I'm not seeing it, now they're actually texting me about it or like sending something to me or something like that. You know what I mean? Because they know that I definitely didn't see it. And so I thought that was interesting. And when you mentioned like just people assuming that you saw something happen, they now know that I definitely did not.
yeah,
And I also don't wanna make this seem like an absolute, like, who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, I'm like, I do want to get back on there, and maybe that's part of the strategy for the business, but right now, it's like the things that I'm building, it just feels so much more spacious, and it goes so much beyond the actual time of making the post or even, like, the time limits on the scroll, because even when you're not actively on the app, you're thinking about content for the app. You're thinking, "Oh, should I capture this? What should this caption be? Oh, I'm making 2 posts a week, but what are these posts going to be?"
yeah,
And there are so many, like, hacks, strategies, use AI, like, all of these things that people are telling you to do that are gonna make it easier, but it's still taking up that brain space, and now that I'm not even that's not part of, like, on the radar, my brain space isn't being allocated towards it in any way.
yeah, yeah. This is such funny timing too, because like, literally after I signed in to this call, but I was just waiting for you so that we could start recording, I was scrolling and I saw somebody who sells social media coaching, so I mean, obviously, like, biased source, but a reel from her talking about the difference of, like, posting frequency, and if you post 1 time a day, like, what happens algorithmically, etcetera. And I literally found myself thinking, "Is posting 1 time a day really that hard?" And then we literally got on to record this episode about getting off social media. It's hilarious to me. But I think what I'm leaning toward for myself is having a second device that is not necessarily connected as like a phone, but it is logged in to all of the mobile versions of the app, right? Of each app, because that was one of the things I noticed when I deleted it from my phone. And maybe it was more than 2 weeks, but I don't think it's very long. Is that I could still access the desktop version if I really wanted to go post something for work or like check something or whatever. If somebody sent me something that I quote unquote needed. But the desktop versions are not the same. They're very limited. So the mobile app is definitely quote unquote necessary if you are going to be having a social media strategy. So I think if I have like essentially a second phone that is specifically for work and is logged into all of my accounts on social media, and it lives in the drawer of my desk so that when I'm in my office and I'm working, then I can sign in. But I don't carry a purse or anything like that at this point. Like, ever since quarantine, I just kind of quit cold turkey carrying purses. So I'm not going to carry 2 phones around. Most women's clothing does not have adequate pockets. So I'm definitely not going to carry 2 phones. But I think that would be a way I could keep it off the phone that's on me at all times. And if I want to be on social, I kind of can make a role for myself like, well, then you have to be in your office. So are you working or no? And I think that could help. But yeah, it's really interesting. I'm intrigued by this because as I've been working on kind of what's the vision for Big Brave Business, what do I want to do, especially going into season 4, like what do I want this all to look like? What's the point? What are we doing here? I'm thinking a lot about like the tensions that we navigate in running a business, especially an ethical core value led business in the age of this. where we are today. And like interrogating systems, right? Really like interrogating systems and status quo of what people say we're supposed to do. And I think at this point, kind of like having a website, there's just this assumption that if you're going to run a business, you're going to be on social media.
That was, like, the craziest thing too when I left. Exactly what you're saying. There were so many people that when I made the announcement that I was leaving, people were like, "Wait, are you still gonna be selling your beanies? Are you still gonna be coaching?" Like, when did I say that I was shutting down the business? And I actually had to make a video. Like, one of those posts in my exit strategy was, "I am not the business is not going anywhere. I am just no longer going to be on Instagram." And I just thought that was such an interesting thing. Like, people do equate having a social media with having a business. And I mean, and I think this is also why I don't like to deal in absolutes because I have put a lot of time into building a community there first and establishing my brand identity, my brand voice, like, people know what I'm about by going on my Instagram right now, but yeah, so it's kind of like, I think for an if you're a new business, I mean, and there are definitely ways to grow an online business without social from the ground up, but for a lot of people who are afraid, it's kind of like if you have those pieces established and another place for people to go, it's very doable. But if you are still building that brand presence and that brand voice using social, I do think it is beneficial to have it, but also you don't have to. So I guess it's like yes, no, all of the above as far as having it, not having it, what's better, what's not. It's really also knowing what works for you. What are your goals with the social media presence, period, and the goals of your business? And what does success in your business look like? Because with any online business, we need to have a place that people can find us, visibility, like reach. But we also need a place to nurture and for people to connect with you and go deeper. And so what are those channels basically for you?
Yeah. That's such a smart way to think of it because when you first, like, told me that this was something you were thinking about doing, that you were, like, plotting what this was gonna look like for you and what your exit strategy was gonna look like and all of that, 'cause you were very, very intentional and strategic about it. I remember saying to you, as far as my opinion, my 2 cents, I was like, "People have been running businesses without social media for generations." Like, yeah, of course you can. Yeah, and so I think one of the things that's tough about running an online business is all of the things that you say no to, that you have to make choices because you literally can't do everything, right? So even when you are on social media, everyone will tell you pick 1 or 2 platforms and like go all in on those, right? Don't try to be everywhere. So I think that in business, in entrepreneurship, such a big part of it is having to learn to say no. I've had to learn this lesson in a lot of things in person too. Like opportunities to serve in volunteer positions or to take on mentorship opportunities or or be a mentee or whatever. Like, so all of these different things that like you kind of just have to pick, even purchasing decisions, right? Like there's so many services we could purchase, there's so many programs we could participate in, there's so many retreats we could go on, there's so many conferences we could go to, but you can't do all of it. So you have to pick and choose and say no to things. And sometimes it's like really hard to be like, I know that there's opportunity there and I'm still saying no, at least not right now, not this year, not this time, whatever it is, right? That's like a really tough part of being an entrepreneur.
Totally. Well, and I think too, it comes from this system that we live under of capitalism, patriarchy, that has these very rigid, traditional, linear ways of thinking about business and growth and what success looks like. I mean, you have the whole your podcast, like so many episodes that talk about those things, right? And it's so true where even though we know this, it's kind of like, wait, if I'm slowing this part of my business down, does that mean I'm losing momentum? Does that mean I'm not growing anymore? Does that mean that things are never going to be where I want them to be? No, it's like so often, especially like in anything, it's a cycle. And so it's kind of like we have to create space for these new things to grow. And if you always are pushing everything forward, if everything's in this forward trajectory, like nothing is going to have a strong foundation. Nothing is going to blossom. Like literally thinking about plants and farming and stuff. I spent a couple years working on a farm. It's like you literally have to cull the carrots because otherwise you're not going to have carrots. When you think, oh my gosh, like all of these could have been carrots that we're just pulling out of the ground and throwing in the compost or whatever. But in order for these to be healthy and to survive and to be delicious and nutritious, like we have to get rid of some of these.
Yeah. And there's something really exciting about if you delete this part, especially if it drains you, if you don't like it, if it feels toxic, if it is bad for your mental health, whatever. If you can remove that, what does this free up space for? That feels really exciting. And I think that's like the energy that was so contagious in us talking about this as you were doing it, is that you're so excited about obviously the in-person connection through the retreats that you hold, but also you're really liking YouTube and you're seeing growth there and you're seeing momentum there. You just started a podcast. You have a newsletter. You have like all these things that you are lit up and excited talking about, of this is how these are going to work together and this is the kind of stuff I get to dig into and explore, and like that's what I love about Big Brave Business. So I get that. I've said for a long time this is one of the most fun things I get to do with my like entrepreneurial journey, is meeting really cool, really smart people and having big brave conversations. Like this is the kind of stuff that goes on in my brain, but there's not really room to have this level of discussion on social media. And as we've discussed on various episodes, it's recyclable. It's the newspaper that's in the recycling bin at the end of the night. And that, listen, this is like my body of work. This is like thought leadership. So this outlet of having this podcast is what feels exciting and fun, way more exciting and fun than showing up on stories and being like, what's the right thing to say for conversions into my next program? Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because even with social, right? Like I tried so many different things too. Like, okay, literally don't worry about the business part of social media. Like just do it for fun. And what is the fun part of it? Just share things that I want to share. But then I think there was this conflict though within speaking up about topics and all this stuff where I was like, I want it to be more, but in order for it to be more, I have to put this energy towards it. But in the way social media is, it's kind of like, I don't know, it was so overwhelming and exhausting. And now with the news or with things that come up, I can engage with it really intentionally and I can give more time to think about and speak more on it and create these conversations in a place that feels, I don't know, not safe. I don't want to use the word safe because sometimes I hate it when people call, well, my thing is a safe space because you're like, well, we want to be able to talk about these things in depth. I guess your podcast has created a place for this, like these conversations. But again, it is a long form piece of content that isn't just that can actually address some of the nuance. No hour-long episode is gonna address all of the nuance, but
sure.
some of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so real. And I think, thanks for calling out my podcast, and as something that's kind of fitting into that. That's what I want it to be. That's what it is for me. I think safe space is such a tough thing. We've talked about this too, but like you don't get to decide what's a safe space for other people. Only the person who's participating can determine if it's safe for them, right? And so I think like it's safe to say that social media isn't that, because there's always, first of all, it's public, so there's always going to be people who can come in and make it unsafe. But second of all, yeah, there's always going to be people who feel unsafe engaging. There are times, and I come into this perspective with a lot of privilege, but I there's times where I start to type out a reply and then realize like this is not necessary. Like what is this, or even my own original post like on Threads, like something that could get caught in their algorithm as inflammatory. And it's like, is this what I want to call into my space? Not really. Like, no, I want to be able to have meaningful dialogue, but is this meaningful dialogue? And you have to kind of like stop and check yourself and be like, no, it's social media, it's rage and fear bait. Like, that's what it is. And I don't need to participate. Like, I don't need to engage with that. I can choose not to, but the easiest way to not engage with that is to delete it. So
I know, it's, like, you said what I was thinking, and I think going back to what you were saying earlier too, like, beyond the world issues that we're dealing with, it's also just people's opinions. Like, if we're going to become thought leaders or leaders of any kind, even if it's the leader of your own life, the leader of your business and how you build it, it's kinda like when there are so many opinions, when there is so much noise, it's hard to discern, like, "Wait, what do I think about this? What are my thoughts?" When you're constantly hearing all this noise, you can kind of, like, get caught up in it, and I found myself getting caught up in it too, and I think that was a big piece of me wanting to delete the apps was because it was like, "Okay, I'm building this new body of work. I do need to put the blinders on for a second here and think my own thoughts and figure out what I wanna say about this topic." And, of course, we're all influenced by other things, like, of course, it's helpful and you learn so much from hearing what other people say about something, for sure. But then we can swing all the way in the opposite end of the spectrum, and what we were talking about earlier, like, off the call, I think losing self-trust, that kind of starts to happen when you hear so many different opinions too.
yeah. Yes. Well, because you lose sight of which voice is even yours. Yeah, and I think you kinda alluded to that at the beginning of this conversation of, like, am I even thinking my own thoughts? I think I've spoken about this on the podcast. Actually, it's probably been a couple of years since I really said this as strongly as I felt at the time. I went through this, like, detox in my business of coaching. Like, I'm not investing in any coaching or, like, any kind of group program, one-on-one, doesn't matter. I just need to remove the coaching from my field of vision. I stopped listening to, like, podcasts by coaches. I stopped following a lot of coaches on social media. Like, I was not consuming coaching content. And I kinda had this mantra of, like, I already know. I already have everything I need inside of me. I already know what I need to be doing, and this is a distraction. Now, I'm less it's not 0 to 100 or 0 or 100, but I think at this point, I'm just discerning about what coaching content I am consuming, what coaches I would follow, what coaches I would take advice from. But I kinda had to remove coaching from my space in order to kind of get centered again on what do I already know, right? And especially if you've done a lot of coaching, you already know a lot. So I feel like the same kind of thing is kinda true with just the noise on social media. Like, you do lose sight of what is yours. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think you had an episode about this. I'm a avid listener. But about discerning, like, what coaching advice and coaching real coaching, like, shouldn't be like, "I'm telling you what to do." It should be helping you think your own thoughts too. But it's like discerning, like, what is helpful and applies to me and works for me versus what is someone else's opinion that works for them, but isn't something that I need to apply to what I'm doing. And I mean, obviously that's more of a strategy systems thing, but like even from an opinion thing, it's like some people, the stronger voices tend to be the ones that you listen to more because it sounds like they're so confident. But half the time, I'm like, I look at it again and I'm like, wait, no, like they just said it really strongly. You know what I mean? It's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. Well, I am really excited for you that you have freed yourself from something that was weighing you down. And I love this permission slip too that we can all do that, whether that's social media or whatever that is in your business, other than like paying taxes. Cause unfortunately, I can't advise that you don't do that. But I do feel like, especially if for the past several weeks, we've talked a lot about like, different ways of being visible and showing up, and a lot of times there's been an assumption that that means social media, but it doesn't have to mean social media. It means any way that you're visible, any way that people can see you. So I think, yeah, also just the permission slip of if you don't have the capacity to be safe on social media, if you don't have an interest in social media, if it doesn't feel good, if it's not fun, if it's not getting results, like literally here's your permission slip to get off of it. And I think that feels really exciting. I'm sure there's somebody listening who is like, going to take this and run with this idea of like, what can my business look like outside of social media? And I think that's really what it's freed up for me as well is like, I don't need to get off social media, but I also don't need to be dependent on it. And this is a permission slip too to consider if it wasn't social media, what would it be? And then what if I put that energy and focus into those avenues and then I can make a decision about where my boundaries are with social. But like, yeah, there's so many other ways to market your business.
Absolutely. Well, it's like you get to decide what those channels are. Like social media is not a requirement
Yeah.
and it is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. Well, as always, thanks so much for being here. And I'm sure you will be back.
Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
I'm so glad. And to you listening, thanks so much for being here as well. And we'll see you next week.